So, I just talk about myself talking about books,
Yeah, this is your wrap up.
but we've already wrapped up the presents.
That you've done better jokes, babe.
Welcome back to the Literature Science Alliance. My name's Ryan, and Happy New Year, because this is going to come up after New Year's. It's Christmas Eve when we're recording this. I'm in my Christmas vest. This zipper is broken, so this just became my sleeveless Christmas sweater as a result. But yeah, so I did something which nobody, myself included, thought was possible. I completed my TBR that I posted a video about at the beginning of 2021. So I'm actually going to go through, watch that video, and I'm going to talk about each book a little bit, and I think give them like a 5 or X out of 5 star rating, and just have a little fun with it. And since it's Christmas Eve, that means one thing for me. I'm glad that didn't fizz too much. All right. The lime and the coconut and shake it all up. Oh, are we gonna get like copyright strike if I sing a song on here?
Not if it's a cover.
Okay. Well, that's my official cover of whatever that song's called.
You've had better pores.
I'm doing this at like a certain angle so like the world can see me poorly pour it. All right. Let's get this show on the road. I just talk about books that I bought.
Yes, you have a book haul.
And that's the whole. I haven't read them yet.
That's the whole video.
First of all, this is during the pandemic because of my hair. Why did we let me go on the internet with like our home haircuts?
We thought they looked okay.
That was all function, no fashion. That's it. And it's called a what?
Well, this is a book haul, but it's also your to be read or TBR.
My TBR.
Yes.
So to what? I was more prepared for the intro this time. Why are there bees?
Just get on with the video, babe.
I like that the jokes are still good. You're still laughing a year later. All right, I'm going to just jump to where we actually get to the books. Because, I don't need to hear myself talk. This appealed to me because it's about basically how work can consume your life, but it's in a very surreal way. Like these multiple workers who work in this just unknown factory. Like they know what their job is, but they ultimately don't know what the factory makes, and then it becomes very surreal. So I'm always interested in reading books that kind of break down work life in that regard, and so that's kind of why this one caught my eye. So, and it's also it's like 3 pages, so I'll probably finish it pretty quickly. So the factory, that was the factory, Hiroto Oyamada, or Hiroko. Am I already messing up on the first book that I've already yeah, Hiroko Oyamada. So that was a disappointment. I thought, like I said in the description, I thought I was getting something a little bit more surreal, something a little bit more imaginative, and it was there. Like, the author had some really cool ideas, but they just weren't really elaborated on. Instead, what this book is more of a pretty surface level review on how work culture can become something that we all become so complacent in that we just kind of forget who we are or like what we're even doing there. And I thought if the factory were a bit longer, I would have liked it a bit more, just because there were some really cool ideas. I'm gonna follow this author and see what else they put out. But 3 stars. If you're looking for like a palate cleanser, it's kind of good for that. If you just need like to give yourself a blank slate if you just read something really intense, or you're gonna switch between genres. It's definitely good, like for a good, it's like vanilla ice cream. And moving on to something that is decisively not literary vanilla ice cream. Shortest to longest, just to make myself feel good. So moving on, we have Hurricane Season by Glare. Hurricane Season by Fernanda Melchor. And so this is about a Mexican village where there was a witch, and somebody killed the witch, and people don't know why. And I'm kind of like hooked on this idea of like genre combination books ever since I read The Gone World. So this is kind of like a crime thriller, but also there's some supernatural elements. All right, so Hurricane Season was some of that. The first half of the book, I was enthralled. I was super into it, and I really liked what the author did. She was jumping from different POVs per chapter. So every single chapter, you would find out about the previous person who was narrating through someone else's eyes. So it was really fun in that regard. And then around halfway through the book, Melcher just decides to really ramp up the depravity, and the book's basically just one big content warning. Like, it is just like, I was getting bored with how awful these people were and how awful these acts they were doing onto others and being done unto them were. Like, it's just it bored me with how frequently grotesque it was. So I'll give that 2 stars. I think, and I know I've even seen it recently. I think people really like Hurricane Season, and good for you. I think I see the appeal, but it just really didn't click with me in the back half of that book. Oh man.
What?
More disappointment.
By Emily Ruskovich, about this woman who's this somewhat elderly couple. This woman is trying to figure out her husband's past life, essentially. Her husband has like memory issues, and his first life is in jail. So it's just like a bunch of it's just like trying to unravel this mystery about this person's life.
Yeah, it wasn't any of that. Idaho is a much more somber book than I kind of expected based off the plot synopsis that I read. It's a lot like Hurricane Season, where I really wanted to like it, but it just didn't really do anything for me. But for a very different reason. It's just a very muted book, and it's a very, very calm look at this family dealing with loss and grieving and dealing with what's the disease that causes memory loss? Is it
Alzheimer's?
Yeah. And a family dealing with Alzheimer's. So it was just a take on that, and I don't, like I said, I'm sure someone else got a lot more out of it, but I just didn't do a lot for me. I'll give it 2 stars. Man, we are starting off with some real great ones.
That'd give you a headache.
Yeah, that book gave me a headache.
Blake Crouch. That's nicer. This is kind of like when I looked up a brief plot synopsis, it gave me very Total Recall vibes, which I love that movie. So, this college professor.
I promise this video is going to be more than just me drinking and shaking my head for 30 minutes.
Is kidnapped one day, and then he wakes up and he's seemingly in an alternate reality. Like, his wife doesn't exist, his son doesn't exist. So it's this very like unknown identity, like what is real, what's fake. So I like that kind of hook. So that gave me some very Philip K. Dick sort of intrigue. So this sounds like it's something that's right up my alley.
All right. Dark Matter was not up my alley whatsoever. Angela and I did a co-review on that, if you want to hear my extended thoughts on it. But that book, that book frustrated me in a way that I can't really think about another time a book has frustrated me before. In that there's just like the author just rushed through this plot. Like it seems like he had like a few like good ideas that he wanted to get through without letting anything breathe. And it's just you have like you can just write more and like elaborate on some things and you'd have such a better book in my opinion. So yeah, Dark Matter. I'll give it 2 because there are some nice moments, but I almost gave it 1 star. Can I do halves? It's my video, 1.5. I promise I didn't only read disappointments this year. And here's a good example.
That in midair, you didn't see it, but just believe me. Nothing to See Here by Kevin Wilson. So this is a book about parenting. It's a fictional story about parenting, except children blow up when they have temper tantrums. Like they go boom. So it's basically if Mary Poppins had explosions.
This is great. I don't have to like describe these books. Nothing to See Here is excellent. Loved that book. 5 stars off the jump. I read that book in like a couple of days. It sunk its teeth into me and didn't let go. I thought it was such a charming look on both taking care of like these troubled kids. That's one thing, but the main character was this woman who grew up like not very well off, and her mom like pulled some strings together into this like private school for like really rich girls who basically they go to the school to learn how to become like housewives for like elite wealthy people. And she doesn't stay in that school because like their mom can't afford it. And then she reconvenes with like one of her only friends from the school, and she has the kids who go boom. And so like aside from this ridiculous premise, you have this really heartfelt story of finding yourself and you know, reacting to ridiculous circumstances on the fly. Like there's so much like fun stuff in this tiny book. Excellent. What's the next one? Oh. Yeah, we're in the banger section. This is like the part of the album that has all the hits.
Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay. Tremblay. So this takes place in New England, and I am just a sucker for anything involving New England.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's basically if The Exorcist took place on a reality show. Like, this girl gets possessed by a demon, and the family decides we can make money off of that. And they have a reality TV show that is basically The Exorcism. But then that's the backstory, and it's the...
So I did a whole video for this. I did a review for this one. Loved Head Full of Ghosts. 5 stars again. I will be reading more Paul Tremblay for sure. Just such a fun take on a horror trope. And like I said it in the video, but like any type of horror that like breaks the fourth wall or has meta commentary or just very deliberately lets you in on the fact that they're like this is more than a ghost story is 100% my jam. So let's move on.
The Immortalist by Chloe Benjamin. So this book has one question at the crux of it, and that is, if you knew the day you were going to die, how would you live? And I believe it's 4 children? Yeah, 4 children four siblings basically have that. They know what day they're going to die, and this chronicles how their lives turn out as a result of knowing what day they are going to die.
Yeah, so The Immortalists, I like that one a lot too. I think it delivered well on its premise. I think it did a very good job showing that these four siblings are all gonna, they're all going to know when they die, and they all die at different ages in different age groups, and you kind of see them as they get older coming to grips with that, with themselves and each other. And I thought that the family dynamic's pretty good, but also the fact that each of them have their own individual response to knowing what day they're going to die, I think was handled very well. And also it also shows these people growing up at a time where the world was changing rapidly. Like the two of them run off to San Francisco because that's where the gay scene is starting to flourish, and it's the only place where it's really safe for gay people to be at the time. So it's a good period piece as well as an interesting hook for a book. So without saying any more, 4 stars. I don't know how to talk any more about it without spoiling it.
They Can't Kill Us Until They Kill Us by, I apologize again if I don't say this correctly,
One day I'll do all this
Hanif
research beforehand.
Hanif Abdurraqib. So last year I read Exhalation by Ted Chiang. It was a short story collection, and it was really the first time I loved a short story collection and read it from start to finish.
I'm just skipping through that because none of that thought process really applied to what I enjoyed about They Can't Kill Us Until They Kill Us. This is another 5-star. Just an excellent essay collection. I will be reading more by Hanif Abdurraqib. He does it was written in 2016, and as a result of everything that happened in 2016. He got the title of the collection, They Can't Kill Us Until They Kill Us, from a memorial to Michael Brown. So it's just his experience with music, with the world as a black man in 2016, and it's just done so well. I absolutely was just like blown away by some of his just how he will just go off on a review about some pop punk album in one chapter and then completely pivot to the first time he got pulled over in the next, and I don't feel like it was jarring or choppy at all. So there was an easy fluidity in this essay collection that didn't really need to be there because it's an essay collection. So super well done, loved it. Let's keep it going.
The Rabbitback Literature Society, and I am 100% gonna mess up this name.
I still don't know how to pronounce this one's name.
Okay, I'm just gonna hold it up. All right, that's the name. Here's the attempt. Sorry.
You don't need to hear that again. Let's just all say it's wrong and keep it moving.
Kind of a Twin Peaks inspired book where there's this small town of very elite writers, they're famous writers, and they're in a club called the Rabbitback Literature Society, but this book chronicles them inducting a new member, and that member then realizes that this club is not what it seems. There's a bunch of surreal things happening, the person picks up a book of a classic novel.
All right, I'm going to stop there just because I just want to talk about it. So Rabbitback Literature Society, I compared it to Twin Peaks because there's a comparison to Twin Peaks right on the back of the book. And, a small town where a crime happens always gets compared to Twin Peaks. So it's an easy thing to just say shorthand, but it is kind of like Twin Peaks. Even I really like this book because it felt like the first season of a TV show. And not everything gets resolved. like the leader of this elite writing club disappears as the new members inducted, and the books get like something's happening to like classic literature where endings are getting changed, and other mysteries happen like throughout the book, and like you only get a few answers to a lot of questions that get introduced. But I kind of liked the way it was handled. Like I wasn't dissatisfied with what resolution I had. I was upset that there isn't a sequel, because I would totally have I'd totally read a sequel to this book, but it was a very fun ride it took me on. So 4 stars.
Bone Clocks by David Mitchell. This person wrote Cloud Atlas, so it's going to be confusing.
Cloud
I gotta
Atlas
be honest
is right
with you,
there.
while I was writing up notes for this episode, it was during a day.
Oh yeah, I was I did not write good notes for that one. But I will say, this is the only book out of this entire TBR that I bought another book by that author before I finished reading it. I think Bone Clocks was my favorite out of this entire TBR. Loved it. I love it. It's like a typical fiction with an underlying secret war of like of like fairies and demons underneath like just these normal people's lives, and it is just such a great blend of genres that I've again, like, genre blending is something that gets me instantly in books. But it's so hard to explain. I just would recommend this book to anybody. 5 stars.
Last one.
Good sound effects.
The Best Bad Things by Katrina Carrasco. So this is another crime thriller, another crime fiction thriller. My notes calls it an old-timey, crimey, blimey.
I stopped the video. Angela just laughed at it again. It was an old-timey, crimey, blimey. You know, it was a very like hard-nosed detective noir story. The really only original thing I felt had going for it was that the main character who's the detective was a woman instead of a man. Like, she still sleeps with other women and like hard drinks and gets in fights. So like it was fun, but it wasn't anything that really it's not memorable. I don't remember any of the characters' names. You know? So, you know, if you're looking for a detective story that has like a little bit of an original wrinkle to it, pick it up. 3 stars. The biggest disappointment was easily Idaho.
Even though the lowest rating was Dark Matter.
Yeah, Dark Matter. I was expecting more out of Idaho than what I got, whereas Dark Matter just kind of fell flat on its own premise. I think I gave myself too high of an expectation for Idaho. I was expecting a lot out of it. I was expecting just more of a story out of it, whereas Dark Matter, I got plenty of story out of it. If I didn't agree with the execution, that's that whole other thing. Biggest surprise was the Bone Clocks. Was not expecting to be blown away by that. Are there any other superlatives I'm supposed to be giving out? I'll talk about the other books that I've read that weren't on that TBR, because there's not that many. But yeah, I started off the year reading Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin. Love that book. Holds up. It's one of those old sci-fis that I wax poetic about. I read The Spy Who Came In From the Cold by Jean Le Carré. Love that one. That was a really fun spy book. And I think Hyperion, I think that is the only other book outside of the TBR that I read this year. Which I almost put down and like didn't finish. Which is odd for me, because like old sci-fi is my jam. But I really didn't like... it took me a long time to adjust to the short story as the whole story format. But I finished it, and I think it ended really strong, and I'm reading Fall of Hyperion now, so, you know, it's good enough for me to pick up the sequel. But I believe that is it. Happy New Beers!